Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today on Living Mythology, I'm proud to bring you the creative journeys of Rik Offenberger. Rik Offenberger is a legend, and he's very well known in comic book circles and beyond. And he's involved currently in a lot of creative projects as he's been throughout his entire career. So we'll welcome Rik. Rik, greetings and welcome.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be here. Really enjoying the invite. Love talking about comics. Comics have been my whole life, and since I was a child, and I've been fortunate enough to work in a variety of fields of comics, and it's really exciting to be here.
Thank you very much. And we have Paul Dale Roberts here as a co-host. Greetings, Paul. How are you?
Hey, I'm real excited about this show because I love comic books. Um, when I became a paranormal investigator, the comic books took a back burner,
Hmm.
and but I was part of the comic book industry. I had a newsletter called the People's Comic Book Newsletter, and all the copies of it. There was like 150 issues, I believe, and all 150 issues are at Bowling Green University Special Collections. So I made sure that they're well preserved, and also too they're at the Library of Congress. And I used to do a lot of interviews and a lot of reviews of comic books. And some of the interviews, we even did an interview with William Shatner when he had his own comic book out, and I think it was called a text series, if I remember right. I'm not sure, but yeah, comic books. Uh, my very first letter ever published was in Mr. Miracle #4. And if you
Oh,
look,
Herbie
if
Comics.
you do a search on Wikipedia for letter hack, that's one word, letter hack, you'll see that I am a notorious letter hack that did over 1,000 letters in
Wow.
various comic books. So, and I'm right up there with George R. Martin, who did Fire and Ice, Game of Thrones. He was a letter hack.
So I have legends who are co-hosts on our show today, and that includes John Carl Pepe, who has a legacy show on my channel. It was a show that carries on the tradition of his father, who was a radio personality, among many other things. Welcome, John.
Thanks for having me, Hercules. Yes, the show is the Pep Talk, and yes, it is in honor of my father, Phil Pepe, who was a sports writer and was on CBS FM for a time. But I also have had a lifelong love of comics. I have been in and out of comics retailing, gosh, for since 1993. Presently, I do sling comics at the Joker's Child in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. So very much looking forward to talking to Rik because yes, what an amazing journey, and I'm really glad that you got Rik on for tonight. It is a pleasure and an honor to have you, sir.
Thank you.
One of my absolute favorite things about you, besides your work coming from comics retailing now into comics journalism and comics writing and publishing, is the fact that you and I share a birthday, January
Oh, nice.
30th. Yeah, and we got a stacked deck on January 30th, right? We got the late Gene Hackman, Christian Bale, Charles S. Dutton, Phil Collins, a few other good ones out there. Dick Cheney, which is kind of funny. So yeah, so we're in good company. And when I saw that, I was like, I definitely want to be a part of this interview. So just happy to see you, sir.
Thank you.
Don,
Thank you.
A great comic book idea.
is that Capricorn or is that Aquarius?
Aquarius.
Okay, okay. Because I'm January 17th.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So we have Aquarians, the heralds of the new age.
I'm a Capricorn.
Rik, now, how did your journey begin? Like, where did you grow up? How did you discover comic books? And what opened the door to the field for you?
Well, I grew up in Southern California. I'm still there. I haven't gone very far. My father had collected comics when he was a kid in the Golden Age. And if he got a bad report card or got into trouble, his mother would throw them away, as many mothers did in those days, which is why the Golden Age comics were worth a fortune. When I was
Which
a
is
kid,
why, if I might just bump in, which is why we love mothers from the Golden Age.
yes, yes. And so when I was little, he started buying comics for me and reading them to me as bedtime stories. And so it gave him an excuse to read comics again. And then at one point, Alan Light did a series of flashback reprints before he did the Comic Buyer's Guide. And he took Golden Age comics and basically reprinted them in black and white on a heavier stock. And so my father got the comics that he had remembered reading and read them to me and my brother, and did all sorts of voices for all the characters and made it a lot of fun. So I had started collecting comics at a very young age before I could read because he was buying them for me. And then when I was about 7 or so, I would take my allowance and my money I'd get for my birthday, and I'd subscribe to the comics because I used to get them from Thrifty Drug when there was a Thrifty Drug, and or 7-Eleven, and you'd go there and they'd have it 1 month and then they wouldn't have it the next month, and some of them were bi-monthly, so it was hard to tell if you were getting them or not. The DCs were a little more accessible because most of the stories were single stories, whereas the Marvel had subplots, and so it was really frustrating as you missed an issue and you missed part of the subplot. So when I could subscribe, then I could get all the issues and I wouldn't miss anything. And so it was, I think it was $3 at the time to subscribe for a year. I think it was 10
Wow.
issues for $3. And so I read comics as a kid. And then when I could drive, I went to all the comic shops that I could ever drive to within range to fill up the holes in my collection. And I collected comics, I still had the ones from when I was a kid. I ordered from Czech Rosansky before he had Mile High Comics, when he just had an ad that said Czech Rosansky in the Marvel, the Marvel comics, and you had to send him 50 cents, and he would send you his mailing list. And if you bought something, you got your 50 cents back.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, and if you didn't buy anything, the 50 cents covered the postage and the print, and the photocopy. But I loved comics, and then as an adult, I was a comic retailer. And I had taken journalism and I had been an editor at the school paper. And so I thought the way I could promote my comic shop was to write for the Comic Buyer's Guide. And so I contacted Don Thompson and wanted to write for him. And in Southern California, when I opened my shop, probably a year after I opened it, some of the artists that I knew in Southern California started an imprint called Image Comics. And I was here and they were here. And so I covered a lot of the launch of Image Comics in the Comic Buyer's Guide.
Oh, that is
So,
incredible and very fortuitous. I'm glad that unfolded the way it did.
yeah, it was just fortuitous. I had known Rob. He was shopping in the comic shop with me. I knew Jim Valentino. He was shopping in the same comic shop I was shopping in because they were both in Orange County. And I was working fairly close to the studio. I lived in La Habra. He was in Anaheim. He opened his studio in Brea, about 3 blocks from the office I was working in. So we had some contact before he was famous.
Now, you stayed close to your roots, it seemed. Part of you did, but another part of you expanded all out in different directions like a tree. Would you care to
Well,
share?
when I had the comic store, I had direct connections with the marketing people at DC and Marvel because they came and did seminars, and I got in touch with them, and I was writing for the trade paper, for the trade paper at the time. But my ex-wife ran off with one of my customers, and there goes the house, there goes the comic shop, there goes everything. So I thought I was pretty much done with comic journalism. I didn't have a direct connection with these, with people at Marvel and DC without the shop. And so I started Comic Book News, and Comic Book News was hosted on the Yahoo list server. We started off with a group called E-Groups that was absorbed by Yahoo. And so Yahoo ran the news, and it was just a clipping service. And it was in the early days, and Newsarama was part of the Comic Buyer's Guide too, and they allowed me to clip from there, and we clipped from a few other places. And Comic Book Resources was literally just a link site at the time; it hadn't started doing news. And so I had contacts there, and so I started just doing a clipping service, and there were a lot of pros who were interested in that, and I had some contact with them from that. And in my spare time, if you remember GeoCities,
Yes.
I built a GeoCities website dedicated to the Mighty Crusaders and the Shield in particular. And from that website, I got contacted by Michael Silverclate, who was the publisher at Archie Comics. And he had questions for me about a comic we had on there called Super Comics. And Super Comics is a Canadian reprint of Pep number 22, the first appearance of Archie. And it has, if you're familiar with the covers in any way, it has the giant Nazi boot stepping on the world with the shield holding it up. It's kind of iconic. And so they had questions about the interior of the book and how it was reprinted in Canada. And so I talked to him, and then I talked to his lawyer, who also had questions. And after they were happy with the answers they got, I thought I was done. But I asked him for a photo of his father and the two other partners that I wanted to put on my website. And I didn't think any more of it. And he said, well, oh, are you going to use it for an article? And if I figured if I said no, the answer, then he wouldn't give me the picture. And if I said yes, he would give me the picture. So I said yes. And then I had to write an article and find someone who would publish it. So one of the subscribers on the Superhero News list server was Phil Hall, who did Comics International out of England. And he had given me a free subscription to Comics International because he was using us as a news source. So I contacted him and I said, I need to write this article about Archie Comics and I need you to publish it. And he had just quit Comics International and started Borderline magazine. So I did an interview with Michael about his father, which is what he really wanted, was to get his father's name out there, because Louis Silverclate wasn't as well known as John Goldwater. And so we did I did the interview, I gave it to him, I pulled out the pictures, he looked over everything, and we made something that he was really proud of about his father, and I was really proud to have done. And I turned it into Phil, and he said, well, this is great, but there's no reason to run it in issue 1 or issue 2 or issue 3 because it's a historic piece. We need something that'll hook it into a current piece. And so I went to Paul Castiglia, who was one of my friends who was writing Archie Weird Mysteries at the time. And I interviewed him and Fernando Ruiz. And so we put the interview together with the historic piece, and it ran in Borderline. And then I wrote for Borderline from that point until they stopped publication. And the last issue was a PDF on Silver Bullet comic books, which is now Comic Bulletin. And when they ran the last piece and they stopped, Jason Bryce, who owned Silver Bullet comic books, said, well, we'll run the rest of your pieces. And so they did. And so I started working there. And after I was there for a while, I was an editor there. I was the senior feature editor for that. And when I left there, I started writing for Newsarama and doing interviews for Newsarama. And then I found that some people at Newsarama had different beats. And so some of the interviews that I wanted to do, some of the people I knew that I wanted to talk to, I wasn't allowed to because that was infringing on someone else's territory. So those interviews with Newsarama's knowledge, I was a freelancer. I farmed out to Comic Book Resources. So I was working for Comic Book Resources and Newsarama at the same time. Just doing interviews with different creators. And eventually the Comic-Con Pulse had lost their editor. And so I applied for the position as the editor at Comic-Con Pulse, and we couldn't reach an agreement on what that would look like. What that job function would actually look like. But I'd put together a business proposal, and so I started First Comics News. I folded in superhero news that had been the newsletter on the Yahoo list server, and we went online as First Comics News, which is still going today. And I appreciate it if you are listening to this, if you'd look there for your comic news. And so
you kept to your
we were
roots
doing,
and branched out
sorry,
as well into new avenues of opportunity. It looks like you're very good at keeping a pulse on the industry and then moving in a direction that would expand your presence.
yeah, it's been very good to me. And so then while I was working, with Archie to do interviews for their people, their public relations coordinator, Alex Segura, quit, and he went to work for DC Comics. So I was on my way to the day job in the car. It was a 15-minute drive. I called up Michael Silverclate and I said, I want Alex's job. And he knew me because I'd interviewed him. And so he put me on a three-way call with him and Fred Mauser, who was the vice president at the time. And they hired me during my drive to work. And so I was the public relations coordinator for Archie Comics. And initially, I was just reaching out to different places and making sure Archie news was covered. And if people were saying bad things about Archie, I would defend them on the internet. And that was the original job, but it expanded as I was there. And I was there for a decade.
Wow.
And while I was there, I worked with Bat and Lash, who did a high school version, a freshman year of Archie. And I had made friends with Bat and Lash. And after he passed, his wife asked me to be a judge on the Eisner Awards. So I for 1 year, I was a judge on the Eisner Awards. I'm currently a judge for the Inkwell Awards. And so I'm really, into all these phases of comics. When I was, once I was no longer at Archie, one of my friends said, you should make a comic. And I said, no. I saw what goes into making comics at Archie, and I can't make my own comics. It's just, I don't have the resources. I don't have the ability. And he said, let me introduce you to Gilbert Monsanto. And Gilbert Monsanto had been a colorist for Whilce Portacio at Image. And so I talked to Gilbert, and Gilbert also said, we can make a comic. And I said, no, we can't make a comic. And I was wrong and he was right. And Eric and Jim Burrows and I started G-Man Comics. We didn't intend to start G-Man Comics, and we didn't intend to call it G-Man Comics. It just kind of flowed that way. Archie Comics used to have a Shield G-Man club back in the 40s until it became the Archie Club. And they used to give you a membership card and a membership button. And, it was a pinback button. And you just sent them in a first class postage stamp, and they would put it on the envelope and mail it off to you. Well, in 2003, I started doing my own Shield G-Man Club, separate from everyone else, just doing it. And we moved to Facebook in 2018, I believe. And every year we've put out a new badge and a new card. And just like the old days, you send me a postage stamp and I will mail you the card and the badge for free. And that's the Shield G-Man Club. It's on Facebook. It's just like it was, in the golden age. It's no different. The art for the card each year and the badge are provided by one of the members of the club. And so they'll do the drawing each year, and we, I print up 100 badges and 100 cards, and we just hand them out for free. And we were at San Diego Comic-Con just this last week, and I did the Mighty Crusaders panel there. I had done it when I was working for Archie, but I've done it ever since as well. And we gave out badges there to the people who attended the panel as well. While we were doing the club, we did some old-fashioned fanzines with the members of the club for the Shield's 80th birthday, which was 5 years ago. And we had done a handbook with the club where each of us put up one of our characters, and we printed that up into just a like a Marvel universe or a DC Who's Who in the DC universe with our characters, and we'd just done one of those, and we called that G-Man Comics because it was the G-Man the Shield G-Man Club. And then we did the fanzines, and we called that G-Man Comics as well. And none of that was for profit. That was all just free stuff. And it's still on Indie Planet, the fanzines. And then we did 5 of them, so you can download those for free. If you want a printed copy, because you like physical media, it's whatever they're charging to print the thing. We make no profit off that. Indie Planet will print it and send it to you at cost. And so, we were having fun with that, and we ended up making comics with Gilbert. And so he started drawing one, and a year later we had a comic, and we put it up on Kickstarter, and we used the proceeds from the first comic to pay for the next Kickstarter. And this Friday we're launching our 12th Kickstarter, and we will have completed 80 comics by then. We will have 10 comics in this Kickstarter coming up. And we like to gang the comics together because it cuts down on your shipping. If you've ever pledged to Kickstarter before, you pay $10 for a comic and $6 for shipping. Well, we talked to the printer, and you can pretty much ship 6 comics for the same price you can ship 1, because that mailer has a certain amount of weight to it. And so if we put all 10 comics in the shipper, it's about the same price as if you just got 1, and we save you money on shipping. So we thought people would like that. And we do a Kickstarter twice a year, every year, on February 1st and August 1st. And whatever we've got done, we've done as little as 2 comics, and we've done as many as 11 comics. And we do a new Kickstarter twice a year.
When this interview is done, if you can send me all the links to things that you're currently doing, I'll put them in the description on YouTube, so people can access them. That is amazing. That is an amazing tale, and you're still active in all that stuff. And
Absolutely
amazing.
Yeah, no, we just did 2 panels at San Diego Comic-Con. The news site is still active and working, and the website for the comics is G-Man Comics, so it's G-Man-Comics. And then I also bought a subdomain that forwards, so if you just run it all together as G-Man Comics in one word, it'll forward you to our website. But it's been fun. And the nice part is that I had a lot of friends in comics, and people donated covers to us, and we've been able to have a lot of fun, and we've had some success. So it's all good.
Thank you. May it continue to be good, and may you continue to be
Thank you.
successful and creative and triumphant in your endeavors. I'm going to pass the scepter now to Paul, and Paul will take over the questions, and then we'll pass it to John.
Sure.
Hey, Rick, how did you get your other name, Simon?
Kirby.
Oh, Simon and Kirby.
Simon Kirby, yeah.
Well, when I was creating the character for the comics, the superhero's name is Simon N. Kirby, the agent. He's an FBI agent. One of the things that I had liked about the Golden Age Shield was that he was an FBI agent. So he was a superhero when he was in his costume, but he was still a hero when he wasn't in his costume, because he was an FBI agent, and J. Edgar Hoover was in the comics and all that. So when we did ours, there were 2 types of things I thought of kind of blending together. One is the old Mission Impossible, if you remember the one with Peter Graves, where he had all those pictures at the beginning, and he'd look at one, and he'd look at another, and he'd take some, and he'd pass on others. And I thought this would be tremendous if that's how we dealt with the team. So that each issue would have a different team, and he'd select who'd be on it. And so one of the things that we did with this is it took me 30 years from the time I started to publish a comic to the time I actually got a comic published. And I didn't want other people to have that same weight. So we have a level where you can pledge, and your superhero will be one of the people picked on the team.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
We produce the comic in advance. So most of the comics are completely done at this point, and we're coloring some and lettering some. We do have one of the 10 that they're still just finishing pencils and inks on the last few pages. But out of 10, we've got 9 that are just in the final lettering and coloring stages. 2 of them are fully complete, and one of them's just waiting for a little bit of text. But we wanted to have people have that experience, and so he draws them in. There'll be 4 pages in this issue of Simon and Kirby that aren't drawn yet. And when people pledge to back, we'll put them in, we'll draw them into those panels with our characters. And so they'll be part of the team. And some of them have reappeared. We had a character, Critter Queen, who was in another story with us. We had a character, Captain Polska, who was just in another story. Captain Polska is Captain Poland, but from Canada. And if you, it's just gold. Captain Poland of Canada, I thought was a lot of fun.
Well, that's cool. I used to read Comic Buyer's Guide all the time. A lot of my letters got published in that magazine, and I see that you worked with that magazine. I worked with 2 magazines. I don't know if you ever heard of them. Vampirotica by Brainstorm Comics,
Yes.
and Comics and More by Genesis Publications.
I remember Genesis. I think I remember, but I do remember Vampire very well. But I remember Genesis Publishing, but I only have a passing knowledge of it. You know, I've seen some of the issues, but.
And I went to the 1997 San Diego Comic Con, and you live right by us, so you probably go there every year. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Well, I as an Eisner judge, I have a lifetime pass, so that helps too. But before that, I had a press pass, and also I worked at Archie, and I had a pro pass from working at Archie, and I publish now. So it hasn't been trouble getting in lately. When I was younger, like when you went, it was in another hotel. That was before the convention center, and one year we went and I stayed at the U.S. Grant, and we could walk right across to the convention. But now we stay with some friends in the Gaslamp District, and we still walk to the convention.
Well, you know, and when I went there, that in 1997, all the creators were throwing comic books at me because they wanted me to review their comic books. So I came out with a big old sack of comic books, and I had my work cut out for me. Yeah, those were the days. I used to correspond with Mike Mignola, and and I used to send him some ideas for Hellboy. And I was surfing on the internet, and then I saw that I was actually credited in the writing of some of the stories in Hellboy, and I was blown away because he never told me he gave me credit for that, but there it is on the internet. So,
well, I mean, that's cool. I had been helping out the guys who were doing the Red Circle comics at DC. Not with anything in particular, but I'd get them back. I have, there were 217 issues of MLJ superhero comics published. And I have scans of all of them. So I would provide them with the different scans and references and things like that as they were developing the characters. And in one of the issues, they credited me as a consultant, and I had no idea they were going to do it. I only found it when it was published.
Yeah, that's one thing with the comic book business. When you associate with all those different creators and stuff like that, you get right in there. They'll do nice things for you. Like my newsletter was the ad, a free ad was in Hilly Rose comic book, and it's like, wow, you know, it's like, thank you so much. They're great people. Yeah,
absolutely. And there's an episode in one of the issues of the Archie Digest. Archie says to the Shield, yeah, I read about all of the superheroes on Rick's wiki. And so as soon as I read that, I didn't know it was coming either. I called him up and I said, that's so cool.
And you were saying that was so hard, publishing comic books. I published one comic book, The Legendary Dark Silhouette by Jasmine Comics. Took me a whole freaking year to get that thing published. So
Same thing with our first comic.
yeah, and it's like after that, they said, "Well, are you going to do a part two?" Heck no, it was too hard to just do part one. So no, but anyway, I know I've been talking enough. I've heard.
I got to tell you, I have the exact same experience. I had thought we're just going to do one run. It'll just, instead of doing a million comics, we're just going to do one run. And that didn't work. We've published 80 comics. Our handbooks on issue 12, and the Agent Shield book is, I'm sorry, the Agent Kirby book is on issue 11. But we published a million comics because when you're working with a team, the team can only do so much, and the artist takes much longer to do the art because it's very detailed and a lot of work, much more so than any other part of the project. And so we end up working with lots of artists who are all working at the same time. So we ended up publishing a lot of different comics instead of one for one long run.
Yeah, in the comic book industry, you get a lot of surprises, and one of my biggest surprise was having Steven Skeets, the former editor of Marvel Comics, become the editor of my newsletter, the People's Comic Book
Outstanding.
Newsletter. Yeah, and he did that for almost 10 years,
That's
being my
so
editor
nice.
and not paying him nothing. I didn't have to pay him anything. Yeah, it was
Well, comics are
my,
are are, are mostly joy and not a lot of money.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
unless
yeah.
you're the top superstar, even if you're working for a big company, there's not a lot of money in comics. There's just a lot of enjoyment and fulfillment. And if you're working in independent comics, that becomes even more so the case. You really have to do it for the love of the craft more than than getting rich.
And
I don't
plus,
know anyone who gets rich in
paranormal
indie comics.
investigators, that's not a high money field either.
Oh, yeah.
We did it
I'm
for
a
the love of
paranormal
it.
investigator. I don't give a dime. I don't get anything.
You get ghost money.
Yes,
Yeah,
in the
ghost.
afterlife, though, you'll have all that money stacked up.
There
Yeah.
you go.
And I'm still friends with a lot of my comic book people from the past. And every once in a while, they'll send me a drawing, and I'll stick the drawing into one of my paranormal books. And
Very
so
good.
some of my paranormal readers, they go, "What's this comic book stuff in here?" I said, "I used to be in the comic book business. I love it. I'll keep on publishing it." So
Well, I mean, it's always nice to do those cross promotional things. I knew a gentleman who did the sort of Bigfoot comic, and he sold
uh,
more comics to Bigfoot enthusiasts than he did to comic enthusiasts. And he was involved in all the cryptozoologic websites and groups and things like that.
here, let me show you something real quick, and then I'm going to pass this on to John because I've been yapping too much. Um, have you ever heard of Ron Lim?
Yes,
Oh,
big
okay.
fan. He was in Sacramento, in this general area.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Ron Lim, he did a cover for my newsletter, and this is one of his drawings where he has his character, Who the Man, beating up my character.
That's totally cool. I've been a fan of Ron since X Mutants. He
Oh,
did some
okay.
stuff for Silverwolf too, early on.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, Ron Lim, he's great. He's great. He's a fantastic artist.
Oh yeah, a huge fan of his Silver Surfer run too.
Oh yeah, yes, yeah, absolutely. But I'm going to pass this on to John because I've been talking too much.
Sure.
So.
The scepter's passed to John.
Okay. Rick, before I get to some questions, you mentioned something that kind of jogged something in my brain that I don't know if anyone has ever really covered this. You would probably know. So the one thing that you loved about the Shield was that, he was an FBI agent by day, superhero by night. And it made me think of the Captain America serial, because that wasn't Captain America. He did not have the shield. He wasn't Steve Rogers. He was a district attorney by day and a red, white, and blue costume superhero by night, right?
Yeah, and he carried a gun.
He had a gun. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was a different presentation.
Completely. And so now you kickstarted something in my brain that I was like, was that serial originally developed as a Shield serial? They couldn't get the rights, and they just went to Timely and scooped up Captain America and just didn't change anything except for the costume and the name.
That's a definite possibility. It certainly would have worked that way. It probably would have worked easier that way.
Right.
The Shield didn't carry a gun either, but I think everyone did in the movies in those time period. With us, when we put our characters together, the other half of it was not only does he pick the team from, Mission Impossible style, but they work for the FBI. So being a superhero is their job.
Yeah.
And it gives a different technique too. I mean, you drive into work together, you clock in, you got the bad boss. It's really, what does it look like if your job is that you're the superhero? You're like the policeman or the fireman, but your job is to put on the cape and do whatever is necessary
to get it done. Yeah, yeah. It's funny you mentioned, yes, guns were very popular in serials. The one moment that sticks in my mind is the Captain Marvel serial, where he just machine guns the guys in the back. You're Captain Marvel, and you're just machine gunning guys in the back, right? So, is Simon N. Kirby? Now I know you're editor in chief of G-Man Comics. Is Simon N. Curry the only title you write, or do you write other titles as well?
No. There are three ongoing titles that I do. Sergeant Flag, if you can see this here. This particular cover was nominated last year as a finalist for Cover of the Year for the Heroic Awards. And he's also a patriotic character, but he's a little different. Simon N. Kirby is patriotic the way Captain America is patriotic. Sergeant Flag is patriotic the way the Punisher is patriotic. The only difference, instead of being dour and sour and upset about it and pretending he hates what he's doing as he's doing it, he loves what he's doing as he's doing it. He enjoys all the mayhem and all the violence of the 90s character. And so this year, Sergeant Flag is nominated for Story of the Year, and we're also nominated as Publisher of the Year, and we're finalists. So we got a 1 in 10 shot on that. I got a better picture here too. This is from Marat Michaels.
Oh, that's cool.
And in the background on the wall, you can see one by Rob Liefeld. He did a cover for us too. But in this story, I thought I was going to do a play on cops. So the film crew follows the police officers around and hopes to get good footage of what goes on. And then they clip that all together and put together a TV show. So we called our show Capes. And there's a film crew that follows Sergeant Flag around. Of course, he drinks, he swears, and he's not a good role model for TV. And when we had to have a film crew, I asked Bill Black and Mark Holmes from AC Comics to be in the comic. And Bill Black has been doing independent comics since 1969. Most famously for FemForce, but he also made a lot of movies about his characters. And so I thought he would be a good director, and then Mark Holmes would be the cameraman. So I drew them into the comic, and they're following them around, filming this, and every other word he's swearing, and they can't use that on TV, and the violence is over the top. So ultimately, at the end of the story, not to ruin it for you, it's not, there's no usable footage. But part of it is him living his life as a superhero who's not quite fit for G-rated TV. And apparently people liked it.
And what's the third ongoing?
Oh, the third ongoing is Lynx. Now, Lynx is a comic that I drew, that I didn't draw any of it. Lynx is a comic I wrote when I had the comic shop. Justin Vargas was one of my customers, and he drew the comic. And we made one page at a time that I lettered with my Macintosh computer. And I would photocopy it, and I'd put it in the pull box of every single customer I had.
Nice.
So everyone got a serialized page. And as he finished another one, we would put that in there. And so if you were one of our pull customers, slowly but surely you got this 20-page comic as he finished it. Well, the plan was that I would then take it when it was done and print it. And we would, and I had a comic shop, so we figured I could sell some there. And I did conventions every weekend. There were different conventions around Southern California, and I'd go to the different ones. And I figured that the minimum print run was 500 units at the time. And I didn't have to move all 500 units to break even. But I figured that if I'm at the conventions and I'm selling this, and black and whites were popular at the time, and they're signed when I'm selling them, and I could move enough to break even on this. And then my wife ran off with one of my customers, and I never published the comic. Well, as it turns out, Justin's brother is a producer in Hollywood. And he and I have had contact over the years at Comic-Con. And so 30 years later, once I'm already publishing my comics, I took those original photocopies and sent them off to a colorist who colored them for me. And then we sent them and had them professionally lettered. And 30 years later, I actually presented Justin with a copy of the comic that he had drawn for the comic book shop back when he was 16. And we put them on one of our Kickstarters, and the quality is not as high as, it was the first thing I ever wrote. It was the first thing he'd ever drawn, and he was 16. But it's still cool to have done it.
And
so Lynx is based on Catman and Kitten, if you're familiar with the Golden Age characters. Here they're a couple, and they're feline characters. He's a former Army Ranger, and she's a kindergarten teacher. And when she's kidnapped, it was a Sergeant Flagg story. Sergeant Flagg has to rescue her, but afterwards they've decided that they're never going to let this happen again. And so they start protecting people in the streets in feline costumes. And so those are the three main titles. Eric writes a comic called Tyrannus, which is the Celtic version of Thor. It's the Celtic thunder god. And Jim, my other partner, wrote Invictus, which is a black female Superman character. And so the three of us were doing that. And then Gilbert, who drew my comic and is our art director, he wrote and drew his own comic, Highlight, and now he's going to do Global G-Men. And so we all do that. And then we've done a variety of anthology books, so that the lesser known characters, we can play them out in smaller stories, some as short as 1-page fruit pie ads, some things up to 8 pages or 10 pages, some just 4, and all just shorter stories with these characters to flesh out all the secondary characters. And so originally we called it 3-in-1. And I wrote one story, and Eric wrote one story, and Jim wrote one story. So there were 3 of us with 3 stories in one comic, kind of like Marvel had done with Tales of Suspense with Iron Man and Captain America originally. And so we thought that was fun. But then we wanted to do more than 3 stories and maybe a smaller page count on some of the stories. And so if you weren't getting 3 stories, we couldn't really do it as 3-in-1. So we called that G-Men United. And we did a series of short anthology stories there, and we'll have issue 7 in the current Kickstarter. And then Jim has stepped down to focus on his novels. He's written 2 novels. One is called The Demon Priest, about a demon that actually gets converted and enters the priesthood. And that character is also in our comics. And the other one is called Aunt Jenny, which is a related character. And so he's focusing on his novels. So without Jim, Eric and I converted 3-in-1 to 2-in-1 because there are only 2 of us. And so we've got a story, each story coming out. And Bobby Ragland's doing the art on both of those.
Was the decision to do Kickstarter, was that from the beginning?
Yeah, that's the only way we've distributed them, and it's the only way you can get them.
Yeah.
Um, what I mean, part of Kickstarter is that you sell these comics, and then you print the comics, and then they arrive at your home, and then you spend forever boxing them up and labeling them and dealing with the post office, and I don't have that much time in my life. So we partnered with Kablam Digital Printing, and Kablam prints our books, but they also box them up and ship them. And
Nice.
so we don't handle any of the logistics. And so they'll print, when we're done with the Kickstarter, we give our Kickstarter list to them. And then they print all the comics, box them all up, and ship them all up for us. And we're busy working on the next round of comics. And so they also warehouse carry and have everything we've ever printed. So if you want a back issue, I have some in my home, but I don't sell those. I mean, I've given them away to friends and things like that. But it's not really something where I'm going to box them up and make a trip to the post office over and over and over again and buy Gemini mailers and all of that. So they print them and mail them for us. And we have 80 issues. So and we run 3 covers approximately per comic. Some only 1, some 8. So approximately 3. So they got a lot of SKUs for us. And they keep track of everything and organize everything and ship everything for us. And we couldn't do it without them. And so, and we try, it's kind of a, once we get the funding from this Kickstarter, all that goes to the artists and they start drawing the next Kickstarter. And so it just is a mill so that every 6 months we're ready to go. Because if you work for Marvel, you got to be able to do a page a day, because every 30 days they got to have a new comic out. We only come out once every 6 months. So if you work for me, you have to be able to do a page a week. And if you can do a page a week, we're ready to go in 6 months.
Nice.
And we have one of the artists who's already working, actually 2 of them. 2 of them are already working on the February comics. And everyone else is just waiting for the Kickstarter to launch and then close so that we can pay the artists and they can start on the next round of comics.
And so not only is the next Kickstarter, you said it's August
1st, Friday.
August 1st, this Friday. Very good.
This Friday.
And so that would be all for the current issues. Can you still get back issues on
all the back issues are available there as well.
Cool. Now, do you have to buy them in those bundles, or can you like kind of mix and match?
No, you can pick and choose whatever you want. We have something that you just pledge for what's called any back issue. And you can pick any quantity that you'd like on that. If you want all 80, you could pick 80 any back issues. And then you can just pick whatever you want, and we find out in the back report what you want, and they pack it up for you, and you get it. And we bundle them and we sell them individually, so you can just get one comic if you just like the one comic. And if you want to buy them in a bundle, you save some money on shipping. If you buy the main core titles, we give you the handbook for free. So that's a little bonus. And if you're one of the people who backs the comic and your character's in there, we give you a page in the handbook too, so that everyone knows all about your character. Because your character is split with other characters and you appear in 4 pages, but you may have a whole history and mythology for your own character that you'd like to get out there. And so we produce that for you. We produce original art for that, and we take your information and put it in the format of the handbook. And we give you those pages to use, in the future when you're doing your own Kickstarter with your own character later down the road.
Very cool. And it's pretty much a shared universe across the line, or
absolutely. It's Marvel Universe style. It's not DC style at all. It's Marvel Universe style, where everyone's in New York.
Nice.
We're all basically in Washington DC, working for the FBI.
Awesome. And
they literally work in the FBI office. Around the corner, we have, they're cop bars. We have a superhero bar. We call it Club Baby Seals. It's an old Bob.
Yes.
You're familiar.
I was always going to be my club name if I ever opened one.
Exactly. And so they go there and they'll drink and they'll dance, because there's a dance floor there for the girls, and and they just hang out.
Yeah.
And we have a restaurant, McTasty. And, there are times where they're just sitting there having a hamburger and just hanging out because this is a job for them. And they live lives like their job is to be superheroes. And sometimes there's a lot of action, and sometimes it's just unpleasant, dealings with your boss.
Love it.
And
Love it.
instead of Starbucks, we have Seabucks. It's the coffee shop, and they hang out at the coffee shop and drink coffee together. And, they gather around the table and plan things and complain.
And so Simon and Kirby, that's the Golden Age book. That's the book that takes place in the past, because you mentioned.
No, they all take place in the present. That's
oh,
just the
okay.
character.
Because you mentioned the head of the FBI, J. Edgar
Oh,
Hoover, right?
that was actually the Shield for MLJ Comics. They're not
Oh,
related.
gotcha. I thought that
It's
was
just
part
an
of the Simon and
inspiration.
Kirby.
Yeah, no,
Gotcha.
it's just an inspiration.
So this
the
is all
character I
contemporary.
named Simon and Kirby, the agent, because he's an FBI agent.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
And the
I missed
name
that.
Simon and Kirby obviously would give
Obviously.
someone an idea of what they're going to see with the character before they actually see it. Sergeant
cool.
Flag, who's more of a 90s style character, his name is Rob McFarlane, which also gives you an idea of what
you're gonna get.
You're going to get if you get that.
Oh my god!
And you started
with Lynx. It's not as readily noticeable that it's Catman and Kitten that we're playing off of.
Right.
We're trying to make it more and more noticeable. But Catman and Kitten was he was an international agent, and she was a little girl. So here they're a couple. But he's a corporate security agent, and she's a kindergarten teacher. We try and put that as much of that together as we can. And also, they just basically have street clothes and are wearing a luchador mask. So we do a lot of wrestling references with that too, because they're not really into the costumes and that the others are. Also, I did a whole thing with Lynx, who desperately wished he had his own Batmobile called the Lynxmobile. They make fun of him for a while that he's driving around in a crappy little car. And so eventually the bad guy gives him the keys to his very own Italian sports car. And then he finds out you can't afford to own an Italian sports car. If the car is worth $6 million, you park it and they steal the parts. You get a bad headlight, you can't afford to replace the headlight. You go to register it and you can't afford the registration. You don't have the lifestyle to afford a $6 million car, even if you got it. And so he has to deal with that, and then he has to ultimately give it back.
Love it. Love it. It's funny. It's a little bit of that old Parker luck, like right when, because how are you going to register your car under your superhero name, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
when Spider-Man gets the check and he can't cash the check.
Right.
So you started G-Men how many years ago now?
6 years.
6 years. You, sir, are a genius for doing it this way, this Kickstarter way, because it seems like you had a crystal ball and you could see what was happening this past year with the past several years now with the entire distribution system for comics. So good on you for that. And
well, that wasn't by choice. That was by necessity.
Sure. Yeah.
The Kickstarter model allows us not to have any money and to produce comics because people pay for them in advance, and that covers our printing and shipping fees. If we went through the diamond model, which I did look at, I'd have to pay for the printing, I'd have to pay for the shipping, and then I'd have to wait at least 90 days before I got paid. So I'd have to pay for 3 issues
or never
before I got the money. And so we just couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
I did a crossover with Tomorrow Girl from Antarctic Press. And so we released that as Sergeant Flag Meets Tomorrow Girl. And then they released it as Tomorrow Girl number 13. And so that made it into the comic shops. So that was our one foray into comic shops. And then now that Diamond seems to be a thing of the past, I don't know how they'll pull the nose up in this stage of it, but we'll see. There are a million little sub-distributors. And apparently we're not in the current catalog, but we're going to be in a future catalog. And we'll at least get the first 4 issues of Agent Kirby out into comic shops and see how it does.
Very cool. Very cool.
Or,
crossovers.
And I'm going to have
Also,
to interrupt at this
oh,
point. We're running out of time.
yeah, I just want to
okay.
get one quick point. I said a
Sure.
retailer could also go to your Kickstarter and order them for their shops as well if they really want to get them in the shops.
Absolutely. And not only that, one of the things that we have up there is a retail exclusive cover. So if you wanted just one comic to try it out, we'd make you a cover based on whatever you wanted. So we could do
Very
our
cool.
characters in your shop. We could do, you on the cover. We could do your dog on the cover. I did a cover with me and the dog on my shoulder as the superheroes are holding me up. So we have experience.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the joy and fun that you exude when you talk about this project is wonderful.
Well,
And I
thank you.
wish you continued success. And I'm really happy to hear though that eventually they will also be in stores on traditional routes. So good job.
And Rick, I'd
Thank
love
you.
to ask you to come back on a later show. We've just barely
Absolutely.
scratched the surface here, and I have tons of questions, and I'm sure that my co-hosts have tons of questions as well. How can people locate you, enter your world, and what are some of the projects that are happening right now?
Well, if you're interested in the comics that we produce, you can go to G-Man-Comics, and you can see all the comics we have produced and we are going to produce. And there's a link there to our Kickstarter on the front page. And so you can go there and you can sign up to be notified, or if you're watching this later in August, you can use the link to go see our Kickstarter. We will be on Kickstarter, and you can search us on Kickstarter under G-Man Comics. I'm also on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, I'm on, which is X. So you can find us there. Also, First Comics News is one word, just all jumbled together, First Comics News. And we publish news about the comic industry every single day, multiple times a day. We got 36 contributors trying to cover as much as we can about independent comics mostly. We do cover Marvel and DC, but we really try and focus on independent comics and the people who aren't covered every single place.
And you have two stories that have been nominated for a heroic award as well.
Yes. We had talked about the Cape story, which came out here. And then I also did a story in Lynx about another pair of heroes where the protagonist, his daughter is killed, and he just basically gives up on life and becomes a superhero, and he's all depressed and and out on the streets. And he finds a little girl who can't find her mother, who's living in her car, and she becomes the light of his life. And she's his teen sidekick, or his child sidekick. And we make them really young, like Batman and Robin originally were. And so we did that story, and that was the second one nominated. And so we've got two of them nominated for awards, and then we were also nominated as Publisher of the Year. That'll be at the Heroic Awards at the Oklahoma Comic Con coming up next month. And so I hope we do well. We were a finalist last year, and so hopefully this year we actually win. But at the very least, we're a finalist again for two stories and as publishers. So very excited.
I wish you great success in that and all your
Thank
other
you.
endeavors. Thank you, sir, and I'm looking forward to your next appearance on the show.
Absolutely.
And Paul, how can people enter your world of ghost hunting, paranormal exploration, cryptid hunting, and all that cool stuff?
I'm telling you, Rik is a fantastic interview. I mean, we could do like
Yes.
5 hours with Rik just talking comics and talking with John with comics. I mean, but I just got to show Rik and John something. They might appreciate this. When I was in the comic book business, I had that one comic book, the legendary Dark Silhouette. Well, Brandon McKinney, he helped work on that comic book with some of his artwork. And they did a crossover, which I love crossovers, of my character shaking hands with Spider-Man. And guess what? A Marvel Comics magazine published this drawing officiating my character in the Marvel universe. I was so freaking excited when I saw that. I said, yes, my character's in the Marvel universe. Oh my God. But anyway, and
That's outstanding.
and I wanted to ask you if Lloyd Smith, Blue Moon Comics, have you ever worked
Yes.
with him? Okay, cool.
I know him well, and we have featured a lot of his stuff on First Comics News, and we've interviewed him. I have interviewed him myself, and Phil Letter has also interviewed him. Big fan of his stuff. He does. I don't think of our stuff as retro, you know what I mean? But maybe it is. It's just done the way I like it. It's the type of action I like. It's the type of humor I like. His is definitely a retro look and feel. And if you were a big fan of comics, in your youth, and you pick up Lloyd's, you'll be really, really happy.
Oh yeah. Anyway, and the way to contact me, simple. Google Bing Paul Dale Roberts. You'll find my articles. You'll find my contact information, paranormal hotline, and email and everything else. I want to thank Hercules, Rik, John. You guys are fantastic. What a great interview.
And you're fantastic too. And you will be back on Friday with John, and you guys will be talking about the entry of Hercules by Jack Kirby
Yes,
into the
Hercules.
Marvel universe. So I'm looking forward to that. And you sound very nostalgic for your old magazine. Why don't you put together a video version of your magazine? I'll put it on my channel. I'll even produce it for you if you want.
Oh, you talking to me or?
Yes, I'm talking to you.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Great De Niro impression, Paul.
I actually have it on YouTube. So the whole visual thing, you can see everything.
Okay, great. But the offer stands. You've been on enough of my shows now that I feel comfortable making the offer. And last but certainly not least, John Carl Pepe.
Okay, really quick, John Carl Yastrzemski Pepe on the Facebook. You can find me there. Friend me, Rik. I'm going to reach out to you on there.
Absolutely.
I do host the monthly The Pep Talk here on the Mount Olympus Podcast Network on this very YouTube channel with my own playlist. We got a great episode coming up. Super fantastic summer. We're going to be talking all about the big movies this summer. And in my day job, I play the role of your friendly neighborhood comic slinger at the Joker's Child in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. So come on down. If you're ever in Fair Lawn, New Jersey, buy some comics, give me a high five. I'd love to see you.
Fantastic. And before I say goodbye to everybody and thank you again, I am going to start including information on comic book reviews and also sharing news about upcoming events or products or things like that. So I'm offering it first here. So if you guys are doing anything you'd like people to know about, whatever circle I still have, because I'm no longer on Facebook, I will put that information out there, like I think on a weekly or monthly basis when I start receiving it. So that's pretty much what I had to share with you guys. And we'll be reviewing comics as well. I used to do that years ago when I had fanzines and things like that in my cable show. So thank you very much. You guys are incredibly awesome. This was a wonderful hour, and I'm looking forward to repeating it again.
Sounds good. Yeah, I look forward to coming back.
Okay, take care, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you.